spot. And, people don't always realize, people that, are kind of in the basketball world, or whether if you're in other sports too, like when you're in.
Caitlin Clark wasn't supposed to look like this. Not after everything. Not after months away from the game. Not after injuries that would have quietly pushed most athletes out of the spotlight, forced them into silence, into recovery, into irrelevance. The rhythm fades. The confidence slips. The world moves on. That's how it usually goes. But what just happened didn't follow any of those rules. Because instead of easing her way back into competition, instead of quietly preparing behind closed doors, Caitlin Clark walked straight into one of the biggest cultural stages in sports and did something no one expected. She didn't just show up. She took over. This wasn't just any commercial. This was the stage. The kind of stage reserved for icons, for legends, for people whose presence alone carries weight before they even speak. We're talking about a room with Samuel L. Jackson, a man whose voice alone can command attention across generations. Charles Barkley, one of the most dominant personalities the sport has ever seen. And Magic Johnson, a symbol of greatness, charisma, and basketball royalty. This isn't a room you walk into casually. This is a room that tests you. And Caitlin Clark? She didn't look like a guest. She looked like the main character. At first, it almost feels normal. A diner setting. Casual conversation. A simple setup. Then one word is said. 3. And everything changes. Because the moment that word hits the air, Clark flips the entire energy of the room. Suddenly, she's not sitting quietly.
She's not reacting.
She's creating chaos. A burger launches across the room, perfectly calculated, landing exactly where it needs to be. Ice cream follows. Scoop after scoop, each one landing like it was guided by instinct. Then donuts. Flying. Spinning. Hitting targets with ridiculous precision. And just like that, the legends aren't leading anymore. They're reacting. That's the twist. Nobody expected the power dynamic to flip. Nobody expected the rookie, the one coming off months away from the court, to control the entire scene. But that's exactly what happened. Samuel L. Jackson isn't delivering the moment. He's reacting to it. Charles Barkley, the loudest voice in almost every room he's ever been in, is laughing, caught off guard. Magic Johnson, the ultimate showman, is watching it unfold. And at the center of it all, Caitlin Clark, running the entire scene like she's done it her whole life. But here's where it gets deeper. Because the real story isn't even in the commercial. It's in what happened when things didn't go perfectly. One throw goes wrong. A simple paper ball meant for a clean, funny moment misses its target and smacks into a hanging lamp. For a split second, everything could have stopped. That awkward pause. That reset. That break in momentum. Instead, the room explodes. Real laughter. Uncontrolled. Unscripted. Jackson bends over laughing. Barkley completely loses it. Magic wipes tears from his eyes.
And Caitlin?
She's not embarrassed. She's not stepping back. She's right there with them, laughing, owning it, part of the moment. Equal. That's the part you can't fake. That's the part no script can write. Because being in that room isn't about hitting marks or delivering lines. It's about belonging. And in that moment, something shifted. This wasn't legends tolerating a rising star. This was legends recognizing one. You can see it in the way they interact with her. The handshake isn't formal. It turns into a hug. The jokes aren't cautious. They're natural. The energy isn't forced. It's real. Magic Johnson doesn't treat her like a newcomer trying to prove herself. He talks to her like someone who already passed the test. And that matters more than anything you saw in the final cut. Because this wasn't just about a commercial. This was about something bigger. Much bigger. This was about a shift in basketball culture happening in real time. A moment where the line between NBA legends and a WNBA superstar didn't just blur. It disappeared. Think about the risk. A player who hasn't been on the court in months. Thrown into a high-pressure environment with global icons. Expected to deliver. Expected to fit. Expected to not mess it up. Most would play it safe. Stay quiet. Let the veterans carry the moment. Caitlin Clark did the opposite. She took control. And that's why the internet reacted the way it did. Because people didn't just see a funny commercial. They saw presence, confidence, timing, charisma. They saw someone who wasn't waiting for the spotlight. They saw someone who is the spotlight. And just as quickly as it started, it ended. 30 seconds. That's all it took. 30 seconds to shift perception. 30 seconds to remind everyone that whatever they thought Caitlin Clark was before, it wasn't big enough.
Because now,
She's not just coming back to basketball. She's stepping into something bigger than the game itself. A space where performance, personality, and presence matter just as much as points and assists. And if this moment proved anything, it's that she's already there. The scary part? This might only be the beginning. The commercial shows you one thing, but the truth? The truth shows you everything. What people saw on screen was simple. A funny ad, perfect timing, clean execution, a rising star holding her own next to legends. But what most people missed is why she was there in the first place. Because Caitlin Clark didn't get invited into that room to participate. She got invited because she had already changed the entire game. Let's be very clear about something. This isn't hype anymore. This isn't potential. This isn't she might be great someday.
no.
This is already happening. And it's happening at a scale that professional sports rarely sees. Before Caitlin Clark arrived, the WNBA was stable but quiet, consistent but not explosive. Games came and went without breaking through into mainstream conversation. Million-viewer broadcasts?
Rare.
Almost unheard of for years. Then she showed up. And suddenly, everything broke. Games didn't just improve. They exploded. Viewership didn't just rise. It multiplied. Entire networks started seeing record-breaking numbers. Not once, not twice, but over and over again. And there was one common denominator. Her. Think about how rare that is. In sports, even the biggest stars don't control the entire ecosystem. They influence it. They elevate it. But they don't shift the foundation. Caitlin Clark did. Teams weren't just playing games anymore. They were hosting events. Arenas weren't big enough. Organizations had to move games into larger venues just to handle the demand. And even then, still not enough. Merchandise? Exploded. Ticket sales? Skyrocketed. Social media? Completely taken over. At one point, her team wasn't just leading women's sports. They were competing with global giants. Clubs backed by worldwide superstars like Lionel Messi. Let that sink in. A WNBA team in the same conversation as one of the most famous athletes on the planet. And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because the numbers started telling a story that nobody could ignore anymore. A massive portion of the league's entire economic activity was being driven by one player.
One.
That's not normal. That's not sustainable. That's not supposed to happen. Which leads to the real tension. Because while she was generating massive value, her actual salary didn't even come close. Not even remotely close. And everyone knew it. Agents knew it. Executives knew it. The league knew it. Fans definitely knew it. That gap, that imbalance, it didn't just become a conversation. It became pressure. Pressure that forced the system itself to respond. Negotiations changed. Structures shifted. The business of the league started evolving in real time. Because of her. So when you see her in that commercial, sitting next to Samuel L. Jackson, laughing with Charles Barkley, getting respect from Magic Johnson, you're not watching a fun moment. You're watching recognition. That ad isn't about comedy. It's confirmation. Confirmation that the corporate world has already made its decision. She's not a rising name. She's a centerpiece. Because brands don't gamble at that level. They don't hand out those moments based on hype. They invest based on certainty. And the numbers? The numbers were screaming the same thing over and over again. She moves everything. But here's the deeper question. The one that sits underneath all of this. What actually makes a superstar? Because talent alone isn't enough. There are incredible athletes everywhere. Players who score more, win more, achieve more. But superstardom? That's different. Superstars don't just perform. They pull people in. They make people care. Even people who weren't watching before. Michael Jordan didn't just dominate basketball. He transformed it into global culture. Tiger Woods didn't just win tournaments. He changed who watched golf. Serena Williams didn't just compete. She redefined the entire landscape of tennis. These aren't just athletes. They're turning points, moments where the direction of a sport changes forever. And now, Caitlin Clark is entering that conversation. Not because someone said it, because the data is forcing it, because the audience is proving it, because the impact is undeniable. But here's the twist. The real twist. What separates her right now isn't just the numbers. It's something much harder to measure. She's likable. Naturally. Effortlessly. Dangerously likable. She can dominate a game, then turn around and laugh in a commercial, throw a donut at someone's head, and somehow make it feel human instead of arrogant. That balance is rare. Extremely rare. Because greatness without connection creates distance. But greatness with connection creates obsession. That's why the audience keeps growing. That's why the numbers keep climbing. That's why brands keep investing. And just when people thought the momentum might slow down, it didn't. After months away from competition, she came back and immediately performed. Not gradually. Not cautiously. Immediately. Leading. Producing. Winning. No adjustment period. No hesitation. Just impact. And now everything is aligning at once. The league is growing. The spotlight is brighter. The expectations are heavier. And she's right in the center of it. Which leads to the question nobody is comfortable asking out loud. What happens next? Because if this is what it looks like before she fully peaks, before everything completely locks in, before she reaches her absolute ceiling, then what happens when she does? What happens to the league? What happens to the competition? What happens to the gap between her and everyone else? Because history tells us something very clear. When a true superstar fully arrives, everything else changes. And right now, it feels like we're still in the early stages. The commercial made people laugh. The behind the scenes made people curious. The numbers made people pay attention. But what's coming next? That's what's going to define everything. Because this story, it's not even close to finished. It's just getting started. And whether people are ready or not, they're about to witness something much bigger than basketball. And this is where everything starts to feel different. Not exciting. Not surprising. Different. Because at some point it stops being about moments. And it starts being about control. That's the stage Caitlin Clark is quietly stepping into right now. Not just controlling games. Not just controlling headlines. Controlling attention itself. And attention is the most powerful currency in modern sports. More powerful than stats. More powerful than championships. Because attention dictates everything else. Money. Exposure. Narratives.
Power.
Look at what's already happening. Entire broadcast schedules are being shaped around her. Not teams. Not rivalries. Her. Think about how rare that is. Even in the NBA, only a handful of players in history have reached that level. Where networks don't just show your games. They build around your presence. And here's the twist nobody wants to admit yet. She hasn't even hit her peak. This isn't prime Caitlin Clark. This isn't the finished product. This is the early version. The version that's still learning. Still adapting. Still adjusting to the speed, the pressure, the expectations. And yet, she's already bending the entire ecosystem around her. That's not normal growth. That's acceleration. Because most athletes climb
Slowly.
step by step,
Season by season.
earning respect over time. Caitlin Clark skipped steps. She didn't climb into relevance. She arrived in it. And that creates tension. Real tension. Because when one player rises that fast, it forces everyone else to react. Teammates. Opponents. Media. Executives. Even the league itself. Some embrace it. Some benefit from it. And some struggle with it. Because when attention becomes concentrated around one figure, it naturally creates imbalance. And that's where the pressure starts building. Not on the court. Off it. Expectations become heavier. Every performance gets magnified. Every mistake gets amplified. Every success gets dissected. And here's the dangerous part. The higher you rise, the less room you have to fall. That's the phase she's entering now. Because up until this point, everything has been upward momentum,
Growth.
hype, breakthrough moments. But superstardom? True superstardom? It introduces something new. Resistance. Because once you become the center of everything, you also become the target of everything. Criticism gets louder. Doubts get sharper. Opponents get more physical, more intentional, more focused. Not because they dislike you, because you matter. And that's exactly what's coming. The league is adjusting. Defenses are adjusting. Game plans are adjusting. Entire strategies are being built with one purpose: stop Caitlin Clark. And that's where the real test begins. Because it's one thing to shock the world. It's another thing to sustain it. It's easy to break through once. It's hard to stay there when everyone is coming for you. But here's where things get even more interesting. Because while all of that pressure is building, something else is happening at the same time. Her influence is spreading. New fans are entering the sport, not casually,
Consistently.
people who never watched women's basketball before are now following it,
Talking about it.
investing in it emotionally. And they didn't come for the league. They came for her. That's the kind of influence that changes industries. Not just sports. Industries. Because once new audiences enter, they don't just disappear. They stay. They grow. They bring more people with them. And suddenly, what used to be niche becomes mainstream. That's the transformation happening in real time. And Caitlin Clark is at the center of it. But here's the part that should make everyone pause. Because transformations like this don't happen without consequences. When one player becomes this influential, it forces a shift in identity.
What is the league now?
What does it represent? Who does it build around? Those questions don't have easy answers. Because building around one superstar creates opportunity, but it also creates dependency. And that's the balance the league now has to navigate. How do you grow the entire ecosystem without making it revolve around just one person? Because history shows both sides. Superstars can elevate leagues to unimaginable heights, but they can also overshadow everything else if the balance isn't right. And that's the tightrope being walked right now. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark just keeps moving forward, game by game, moment by moment, opportunity by opportunity. And what makes it even more dangerous? She doesn't look overwhelmed. That's the scary part. There's no visible hesitation, no visible fear, no sign that the moment is too big. If anything, she looks comfortable, comfortable in chaos, comfortable under pressure, comfortable being the center of everything. And that's not something you teach. That's something you either have or you don't. Which brings everything back to that commercial. Because now it means something completely different. It's not just a funny ad anymore. It's not just a viral moment. It's a preview. A preview of what happens when Caitlin Clark steps into spaces that used to belong to legends. And doesn't just fit in, but stands out. And if she can do that there, with icons, with cameras, with expectations, then what happens when she does it everywhere else? That's the question nobody can answer yet. But one thing is becoming very clear.
This isn't temporary.
This isn't hype. This isn't a phase. This is a shift. And the rest of the sports world, they're not watching it happen anymore. They're reacting to it. Because whether they're ready or not, Caitlin Clark isn't just part of the future. She's shaping it. And now, there's no more hiding from it. What started as hype turned into momentum. What turned into momentum is now becoming something far more dangerous. Inevitable. Because at this point, Caitlin Clark is no longer chasing anything. She's not chasing validation. She's not chasing attention. She's not even chasing greatness. Everything is starting to orbit her. And that's the exact moment in every era where things either explode to legendary levels or collapse under their own weight. There is no middle ground. Because history doesn't reward almost superstars. It doesn't remember close. It remembers dominance. It remembers takeover moments. It remembers the players who didn't just arrive, but changed everything permanently. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Caitlin Clark is standing right at that line. On one side, sustained greatness, legacy, transformation. On the other, burnout, overexposure, resistance. And the difference between those two paths is razor thin, because the spotlight she's under right now is not normal. Every move is tracked. Every performance is judged. Every word is analyzed, not just by fans, but by media,
By brands.
by the league itself. And here's the twist most people don't see coming. The same spotlight that builds you can turn on you just as fast. All it takes is one shift, one cold streak, one narrative change. And suddenly, the conversation flips. We've seen it before. With legends, with icons, even with players compared to the greatest, like LeBron James early in his career, praised, hyped, elevated, then scrutinized, doubted, challenged. That cycle? It's coming. Not because she's failing, but because she's that important now. And importance attracts pressure. But here's where Caitlin Clark becomes different. Because while the outside world is speeding up,
She's not.
she's still playing her game. Still taking shots others wouldn't dare to take. Still making passes that don't just break defenses, they break expectations. And that's what makes this moment feel so unpredictable. Because usually when pressure increases, players adjust. They become safer, more controlled, more cautious. She's doing the opposite. She's expanding, taking deeper shots, playing faster, thinking bigger. That's not just confidence. That's belief at a level most athletes never reach. And belief like that, it spreads. Teammates start trusting more. Fans start believing more. Even critics start watching differently. And suddenly, you're not just playing games anymore. You're creating moments. Moments that define seasons. Moments that define careers. Moments that define entire eras. And that's where we are right now. Because everything is building towards something bigger. The league is growing. The audience is expanding. The stakes are rising. And Caitlin Clark? She's right in the center of all of it. But here's the real twist. The one that changes everything. This might not even be her final form. Because what happens when the game slows down for her?